Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the El Toro's podcast, exclusively now on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Here, let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on things like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast, which is always a plus, with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast right at your fingertips and in one place. I can't believe it took me this long to switch over to Anchor.fm, but I couldn't be happier now. So, get yourself started and download the free Anchor app now, or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome everyone to episode 20 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. Catch us here every Wednesday afternoon at 12 o'clock via soundcloud.com/LTorsPodcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron. And also any business inquiries, go to capitalwrestling@gmail.com. And if you haven't gotten your tickets yet for the July 29th show coming up on our debut in Hoboken, New Jersey, go to tinyurl.com/Capital Wrestling or go to brownpaperticket.com and search Capital Wrestling, next stop Hoboken. So we have a huge show planned coming up in a few weeks, and tonight it's no different on this podcast. A little bit later on, we're going to talk to the Colossal Mike Law. He'll be facing the debuting Matt McIntosh. But first, we're going to talk to a very esteemed guest, and he is from the GFQ Network. He is a host of What the Tech and host of the Matt Man podcast. He is none other than Andrew Zarian. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, what's going on, man? Glad I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, we got past the cold, we got past the Long Island Railroad, so, I mean, nothing can stop us.
It's been a disaster the last couple of weeks here. I was sick for like 2 weeks, and then the meltdown that is the Long Island Railroad here in New York City. It's a nightmare. So finally, I'm actually sitting in a bar. I'm sitting in the backyard of a bar. So I've been on the road the last couple of days, and I finally had a moment. I'm with my co-host Rich from Matman. He's hanging out with me, having a beer today, and I'm just drinking wine while I'm talking to you.
Well, now you're just making me jealous. Now just drink one for me, okay?
Absolutely. I'll drink a couple.
Now, how have you been lately, man? What have you been up to?
Busy, running around a lot, doing the podcast. I do about 3 of them now, but I manage about 15 shows a week that we're producing at the network and putting it out, and then we're getting ready for September, where we do a major revamp every year where we add new shows and we take away stuff that's not working. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the qualifications for it not to work? Like, what do you base that on?
Shows that work that make me money.
Oh, okay. Money.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, there you go. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, if you're, in reality, it's more if you have an audience and you got a following, you don't have to make a lot of money. You don't really even have to make much at all. It really comes down to, do you have a following? Is the show working? Do I personally enjoy the show? Mm-hmm. And can we potentially make money one day?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, over the years, I've definitely, listened to your podcast, followed on Twitter, and you've done great things in terms of just the podcast itself, but also, like, you guys do great stuff in the studio with the video and everything, so it's really interactive, and you can definitely, place faces to the voices. It's great.
That's been the hardest part now. I have my full-time job, obviously, is the network, and that's been my salary, my bread and butter for, last 8 years, but I was given this unbelievable opportunity to take a director of marketing position for a company here in New York City, and I accepted it. So now I'm pretty much working full-time for 2 places, myself and the company I'm working for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, dual income, man. That doesn't hurt.
Dual income, no, it doesn't hurt, but you know where it does hurt? When you have to do a podcast and you constantly have to cancel with them.
Oh, yeah, but as long, I know you're a good person, so I wasn't taking anything personally by any means.
No, I appreciate it.
But, obviously...
it's running the network has been an unbelievable journey for me.
Yeah, and you got the new family and everything going on, so, there's a lot going on for you.
Yeah, 2 kids, and you know what? At the end of the day, I get to talk about wrestling and make terrible child sophomore jokes, so it works out for me.
How is the new baby, by the way?
Unbelievable. This kid is going to be a tank. Actually, he's in the 95 percentile for his height and in the 85 percentile for his weight. This kid is going to be like 6'5".
Have you taught him how to take a bump yet?
No, I was teaching my daughter yesterday. Actually, I was doing a back bump, and my wife was like, "It's like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm teaching her how to bump already."
Hey, you gotta make that money as soon as possible with these kids.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I mean, if dogs out there can have Instagram accounts with millions of followers, then come on.
Listen, in the days of social media, I have a younger brother. He's 22, and I tell him all the time, if you don't make money, you don't want to make money. My dog's Instagram account, and I did it as a joke to kind of mess with one of my friends. She's a really well-known food blogger, and she has like 80,000 followers. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Watch how easy this is. I made my dog's Instagram account for 2 weeks. I just posted one picture a day. It has like 4,000 followers.
Jesus. I'm sitting here posting like things that mean so much to me and getting like 2 likes. I'm like, yeah, I'm famous.
I know. It's the same here, right? You post, you make the most unbelievable post, and you think it's so elegant and coherent and educated, and then you post something like a dick joke, and at the end of the day, that gets the most likes.
Yeah, it's who knows what social media is up to these days, but it's you just can't measure it. But you know, this podcasting. I mean, where did that begin for you? Your love of podcasting.
So. It's actually funny. I was in IT for a while, and I had just gotten married, bought my car, bought my house, got a dog, and then I got laid off from my job. Mm-hmm. And it was a great gig, but they were just downsizing. It was this Japanese company that I was working for, and the way that they always worked with the company culture was last one in, first one out. So I was the last one in, so I was the first one out, and I was sitting at home, and I decided I never wanted to go back to work again. Mm-hmm. And I told my wife, she goes, what do you want to do? And my buddy, he's a stand-up comic here in New York, Casey Aurora, and he just happened to come over that day, and he's like, why don't we do a podcast? I said, great, what are we going to call it? He goes, I don't know, Guys from Queens. I go, perfect, let's do it. And that's how it started. We literally, we were drinking, and we got loaded, and I bought 2 microphones, and we recorded our first podcast, and that's pretty much how it started.
What year was that?
2009.
Yeah, I guess that's before everyone had a podcast, including myself.
Yeah, well, you know what it was for us? We did video. We did live video. Mm-hmm. And nobody really was doing it. We would broadcast on Stickum.com. And it just so happened that the head of programming for Stickum was moving to Queens and saw the name, and she put us on the front page. And I think, like, our third show, we had, like, 20,000 views. Mm-hmm. And after that, it just picked up from there. It was, we didn't get that every single week, obviously. We weren't on front page, but it was a nice little catapult for us to kind of get to where we are.
I mean, talk about the progression, though, from that to, branding it and marketing and finding its own identity.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I did it as a hobby to keep myself busy, and I never went in with the intention of making money doing this as a career. And when I realized that, I was making, I had some viewers, I never even reached out to advertisers. I learned as they came to me. I had 2 advertisers come to me, and they're actually still with me today. I have Hover and I think it's FreshBooks. Those were my first 2 ads. Mm-hmm. And 8-9 years later, they're still here.
And now, when did you discover that you had like a gift, with that voice and everything?
Oh, I think I have a terrible voice. I in my mind, I suck at this. I was always a fan of radio. I grew up listening to Howard Stern, and I was actually a big, probably. As a kid, I listened to Howard, but my second major radio show I listened to was on EATA Radio, and it was Dave Meltzer. Mm-hmm. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez's podcast, I guess internet broadcast at the time on EATA. So I would listen to them in the mornings. I would listen to Howard on the way to school, and then on the way back, I would listen to Dave and Brian. And I really fell in love with the talk radio format. And I would listen to live audio wrestling out of Toronto, and they were a huge influence on me. So I kind of took all these influences and radio, and I kind of meshed them into one person. And, of course, Leo Laporte, because I do the tech stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great podcast, too. I mean, I guess you with your career in IT, that's where that spawned from, obviously.
Yeah. So I was a big fan of Leo and the screensavers on Tech TV, and that kind of kept me interested in technology when I was in my teens. Mm-hmm. And then, I listen to Howard and listen to Leo and listen to Dave and live audio wrestling. I kind of that was kind of the premise of my radio personality, and it grew into, you know, what it is today.
I mean, it took me about 6 months to not hate my voice.
Oh, I still hate it. You know, luckily I'm getting older. I'm in my mid-30s now, so for me, I'm sounding better and better as I get older.
Yeah,
I'm looking worse. I'm looking older. I'm looking tired, but at least I sound good.
At least you got the beard.
The beard hides all of it.
No, my friend one time after the first few episodes, he goes, yeah, your voice is nice. It puts me to sleep. I'm like, that's great. I'm so proud of that. I guess
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, I guess that can be used for like if people are trying to put their babies to sleep. You know, put me by the monitor or whatever.
Yeah, but listen, you can make money with that.
True. Yeah, I need to monetize that exactly. It's like, what do you do? I'm a full-time baby put to sleeper. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
I could use you, actually. With 2 kids, I could definitely use that. I think I got to put you on.
There we go. I got a little side gig there.
Yeah.
Now, whether you're a promoter, a wrestler, a podcaster, it all begins being a fan. And where would you say your wrestling fandom started and your fondest memory?
Oh, my dad. So my grandfather was a bodybuilder, and he used to work out with Bruno. Many years ago, he became workout friends with Bruno, and my grandfather was workout buddies with the Iron Sheik's, I guess, influence in what he did, and he was this Olympic quality, unbelievable wrestler named Takti in Iran. And my grandfather worked for the U.S. Embassy and would go to Tehran because he spoke Iranian, and he became workout buddies with him, and actually the Iron Sheik would be in the gym. So it's like that's like the first weird wrestling connection. But for me, it was that I came from a bodybuilding family, and my grandfather and father were huge wrestling fans, and they would watch it all the time when I was a kid. And I think the first event I ever went to was SummerSlam '91, and I fell in love with the business.
Yeah, I remember the first show I went to, actually, live event was SmackDown, and it was the one with Trish Stratus and Vince McMahon, and Linda was in the wheelchair.
Yeah, right before Mania.
Yeah, going to that one and being with my dad at the time, that was really awkward.
No, my father was my influence in wrestling. He was always a body guy, so I grew up with this, come from like a bodybuilding family. I am by no means a bodybuilder. I work out, but I'm not a trained bodybuilder. But a lot of the influences are in my mind. Like, we shave our arms, which is only normal in wrestling and bodybuilding. You shave your arms and legs. It's like a weird deal. And I grew up with that, where my father would be like, oh, no, you got to shave your arms. I remember that as a kid. And I would think, like, oh, all the wrestlers are nice and smooth. I guess that's normal. Later on, you realize, like, yeah, nobody does that.
Dude, all the podcasters are shaving their arms.
I started that, actually. That's my trend.
It's a trend.
They're growing beards and shaving their arms.
Now, what has the biggest obstacle been for you, whether doing podcasting or, the head of the network?
That's an interesting question, because it depends on the time. With 2 kids now, that's the hardest thing, is managing my time. I have all these ideas for shows that I know would do pretty well, but it's just the time management. So I would say that is the biggest obstacle right now, is actually getting in the studio and recording. Going to work every day in the city and then coming back, and then I have my responsibilities with the company, and then my house, my kids and my wife. So my biggest problem is time. There's not enough time in the day for me to do stuff. The other one would be drinking, obviously. That's a terrible obstacle to climb over for me.
No, I see. You'll do the Instagram post. We have the you'll be in the bar, drinking a beer, but also working on podcasts or whatever it is. And I'm quite envious. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, so I have a little office by me, and it's a bar called Poorhouse by my house, and I go there with my laptop and I drink and I work, and I sometimes record my podcast, and sometimes my kid comes and I have my kid with me.
You should do a parental advice podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually doing a parenting podcast called "So This Is Fatherhood." I'm going to start that in a couple of weeks.
Oh, excellent! There's a little breaking news right here on the Capital Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah. So I've been working on that. Other than I would have started earlier if Shapiro wasn't on my ass.
What would your advice be for people starting out as podcasters these days?
Well, a couple things. One, talk about stuff that you really like. There's in wrestling, to kind of bring it to wrestling. Rich and I always talk about this on the show. We wouldn't do the show. We did not enjoy wrestling. And the moment that we don't enjoy doing the wrestling, watching wrestling, we're not going to do the show. So obviously, do what you really enjoy. Don't be negative. I like to, obviously, if there's something terrible happening, you'll talk about it, but we don't dwell on that. We don't focus on the negatives. We like to talk about the positive. We like to talk about things that we like. We don't, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't act like a bunch of marks doing a show.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you could do. And I know that there's a market for that. I know people that they have a nice audience for that, but that's not how I see things. I only do things that I enjoy. And when I stop doing it, that's because I'm not enjoying it. I was talking to Matt. We were talking, and I try to help out as much as I can. And I know that it's a lot of work, obviously, running a promotion like Capital Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about this, and he's like, "Well, would you want to do production? Would you want to help me out?" I said, "I love everything that's going on with Capital Wrestling. I generally feel like it's a very unique and different type of promotion, especially here in the Northeast. And the guys, all the boys that are working for the company are unbelievable and greatly professional, and it's a great operation. But I'm doing it because I love it. I'm not doing it because I want to make money with the business or anything like that. If I'm not having fun doing it, I'll just say I'm not having fun anymore, and I won't do it anymore. No hard feelings. That's been my approach with everything that I do in life. I only do it because I enjoy doing it. I don't do it for the money. I don't do it for anything else. If I like doing it, then it makes everything better."
Exactly, and to go back to your point about people being negative, I mean the wrestling crowd is so fickle that I have friends where they'll tell me to be more positive, and so then when I'm more positive, they go, "Oh no, but you're not trashing this." It's like, wait, what am I supposed to do?
Well, it's the internet culture. I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's the internet as a whole. It's easier. It takes less work to dwell on the negative. It's very easy to find the negative, but if you actually take the time and explain the positive, it's a little bit more of an intelligent conversation, and it's harder to do so and to gain an audience like that. My whole thing is we like to, obviously we have, for Matman, it's a successful show, knock on wood, thank God, it's doing great, but
Mm-hmm.
Rich and I always have this debate where we'll have people come and say, "You guys are crazy, why do you like this?" And if we can explain it in a way for them to get it, then we got our message across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I'm coming through with interviews, I enjoy the interview aspect of it. I mean, there's so many people out there. I mean, even I have my own other podcast, the Squared Circle Sound Off, and I'll talk about WWE and whatever I want on there. But I mainly enjoy just talking to people, getting to know them, and spreading their story.
By the way, I knew that you did the show. Now everything rings a bell because I know the podcast. So
well,
now it all comes full circle.
Full circle. I running that Twitter account and my Twitter account, I feel like a split.
Dude, you have no idea. So for my company, I manage all the social media accounts as well,
mm-hmm.
and they have about 6 of them. So it's 6 of those and 6 of my personal for the business and everything. So I'm doing 12 accounts in one day.
Wow, I'm sitting here
overwhelming a little bit.
I'm sitting here with my dry erase board and writing down my guests for one show, my guests for the next, and then somebody cancels. But it's all about adapting and going with it, man.
At the end of the day, no matter how hard my day is, I always think to myself, I could be digging ditches.
Yeah.
And that's way harder than what I'm doing right now. So I'm really blessed and very lucky to be in the position that I'm in.
No, definitely. I totally see that. And but now we'll switch to Capital Wrestling. And where did that all begin for you? How did you guys? I guess you've known Matt for years.
So it's actually crazy how small of a world the wrestling world is, especially the podcasting, wrestling. So Harry Turginian, announcer, color commentator for Capital Wrestling, he had done one of the podcasts on my network, Lunatic Radio. And they focused on stand-up comics, and it was more like a comedy show, like an Opie and Anthony type thing. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that Matt also was an intern for them. So between Matt and – I'm getting laughed at here. I'm doing a podcast. They're coming and laughing at me. Between Matt and Harry, I had that weird Opie and Anthony connection through this show. So Harry would come on Matman all the time because he loves wrestling and we love having him on.
Mm-hmm.
So we started doing the show together. I met Matt through the Next Level Wrestling guys out of Deer Park.
Mm-hmm.
I became very good friends with Kyle, the promoter, and we just started off with that. And I can't even tell you how I connected with Capital. I think Matt reached out to talk to me one day, and we spent like 2 hours talking, and after that, we just, it kind of connected, and we all linked up.
Nice, yeah, it's definitely made for...
It's a weird, fluid, movement. It's so small, especially the Northeast, where if you do podcasting and if you do wrestling,
mm-hmm.
everybody knows you. In comedy, it kind of blends in together.
Yeah, and it's just all these people doing these multiple things, and many feathers in the hats for these people.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is.
I mean, do you still do the view from the Capitol, or is that?
No, I did do the view from the Capitol, but it got so crazy with the second kid where it got impossible to do.
Yeah, that was definitely fun to see, and obviously that's where I was like, damn, this. I mean, I knew your voice from Mad Men, but then I see it, place to face to it with.
I'm going to tell you something. That was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done.
Really?
Because generally, if I do pre-recorded stuff, I have a teleprompter in front of me, and it was so. And it's most of the time it's written by me. And I know that Marcus was doing a lot of writing, and so was Matt. So I was having to read it in their voice. It was actually very difficult for me to kind of put together. It would take me about 2 hours to put that thing together because I wanted to read it exactly. I didn't know Matt and Marcus that well at that point. Now, if I did it, I'd probably ad-lib the whole thing and cut it up. But I was kind of following like a standard way of doing it, and I found it to be very difficult because I was out of practice. I hadn't done anything like that in a while.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's writing down the plugs and everything, and it's at first I had everything written down and reading it word for word. Didn't want to screw it up, and now it's kind of like it's in the back of my head. For me, it comes down to like if it's something like this, this is a conversation for me. I'm enjoying the conversation, so it's easy for me to talk about. But if I have to kind of read without what I was doing, it's actually crazy. I was printing it out in big bold writing, and I had my wife flip the pages every time I was reading it, and we would have to do the cuts. Yeah. Oh,
it was a lot of work to do that.
No, it's definitely interesting to hear about little behind the scenes like that. But also, like, what?
You tell me to cut a promo, I'll cut a promo on you. But you tell me to read it word for word, I have a problem.
Oh well, I mean, talking to MJF, he cut quite a 20-minute promo on me, so I'm good there.
I have to tell you, I know that you just interviewed him.
Yeah.
He's one of the most talented up and coming guys that I've ever seen work. I saw him work twice already, and he's so good. And on the mic, he's phenomenal.
No, he is, and I'm obviously in the ring as well. And the first time I saw him was Broken Anniversary back in MCW with the Hardys, when they were still doing the independent scene. And I mean, that guy is just in this from January, like 6-month period. That's ridiculous, like the growth.
Yeah, very good. He's very, very good.
Obviously, you got guys like him, Leo Rush. I mean, Leo Rush just signed with NXT.
I mean, unbelievable, well deserved.
And they're going to be facing each other actually a week before Capitol Wrestling at Wrestle Circus, but. What are your thoughts on the, we mentioned the product a little bit, but what about the roster themselves?
For Capitol?
For Capitol, yes.
I think it's great. I got a chance to sit down with them and kind of talk to them. I was kind of broken in by old school guys a little bit. And it's amazing to see how respectful everybody is and keeps a tradition of pro wrestling. And I really appreciate it. Being, somewhat of an outsider that's been allowed to come in. It's been an unbelievable experience for me. I have to tell you, I had the best time working with these guys and cutting promos in the back, just giving them a little bit of guidance of where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do, and then just running with it. I was amazed at the amount of talent that exists in the locker room, where not only are they great fundamental workers, all of them, but they're also so good with the camera goes on, you give them the cue, and they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I it's amazing because you look back 20 years ago, and I don't think a locker room like that would exist 20 years ago. Yeah, you had great talent and you had big stars, but overall, if you look at the entire roster, I think now, especially in independent wrestling, not just Capitol, but independent wrestling, the boys care about what they're doing. They care about the company they're working for, and it's great to see how everybody was so hands-on in the back. They were coming up with their own ideas, and everybody was working hard. They wanted the show to be great. They didn't just do this for a paycheck.
Yeah.
They did it to have it be successful, and I think that's the difference between Capitol and some other guys.
Yeah, and any matches stand out to you as your favorite so far?
You know who I absolutely love? Sonny Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of his. He stands out. He's very different than anybody else. I always have a good time watching his matches. I mean, I had the pleasure of calling his match, and first time I saw him wrestle, I called it, and I was genuinely enjoying it. And I think that comes out, and when you're calling a match and you're watching a match, it's very different. It was like I was calling the match I was watching.
Yeah.
And I was really enjoying it. It was a lot of fun. But I mean, that entire roster is so good.
The Squared Circle Sound Off will be sponsoring him versus Paul Jourdain. I mean, that's going to be a fun match right there. And there's a lot in the lines, when storyline purposes for if Sonny doesn't win, he has to leave Capitol Wrestling.
Yeah. I think overall, that whole time, New York Wrecking Crew, by the way, one of the best tag teams in the Northeast.
And they just got those House of Glory tag team titles, so.
I know, I saw that. I mean, they're unbelievable. I really enjoy their matches. It just, in general, that whole roster is so good. It's so strong.
Now, you weren't able to be at the first show, correct? You were at the second show, though.
Yeah, I was at the second one. I actually had to leave a little early because I had to get back to the kids at home. So I missed the big no-no in the business, right? You leave before the main event goes on. But I had to leave. Hey. I had to get back to the kids. My wife had just had the baby, so.
Oh, it's totally understandable. But, I mean, obviously, since you weren't at the first show, but in terms of, I guess you've seen the product on your network, but what about the progression, you think, from one show to the next in terms of the product?
Yeah, the progression has been great. They, every taping, the production quality gets better. That's why I'm here, to kind of help out and give some sort of guidance with that. Obviously we could do a lot better, but we're doing unbelievable. I think as far as the production value and the editing and the audio quality, it's so above what so many people are doing. It's a very unique type show. I know, the venue was great. I know we're in an even better venue this time around.
Yeah.
But, we were allowed to have this beautiful venue, and it really helped, make it stand out. And I think with Capital Wrestling, I think that's the whole point. We do things that kind of stands out, and it's better than every other independent wrestling group that puts on a YouTube video with one match. Our color commentary team. Our commentary team is great.
They're great, yeah.
I mean, they sound great. They know what they're calling. The backstage promos are great. It just overall, it's a lot of good stuff. Gangone, for example. You have Gangone. You got all these guys that actually care, and I think that's what makes our quality so much better.
Yeah, shout out to Stephen James and Harry Turjanian. Just great the announcing team.
Yeah, Stephen James is great. Harry, I absolutely. You meet certain people sometimes and you connect with them. I was just talking to my co-host Rich about it. Harry immediately we connected with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also the Armenian thing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I'd added him on Facebook, and then I hadn't really actually met him in person until the second show, and we just got to talking, and it's 20 minutes later, I'm like, wow, I mean, I'm so used to people, in these days, they talk to you for 2 minutes, and they're like, oh, I gotta go, but he was, he'd give me the time of day, and, it was great.
Yeah, no, he's unbelievable. Somebody else, I just want to mention, I really like the Perfect Strangers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of theirs. So, being kind of involved with the business, I know a lot of people kind of fall out of being a fan.
Yeah.
For me, being around guys like that, it makes me even more of a fan. Going in the back and seeing how nice everybody is. It's a little intimidating when you first come in. I've been covering wrestling for 5-6 years now, and I got a couple of friends in the business. Stevie Richards is one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And he kind of smartened me up to everything. Mm-hmm. And you're always still a fan when you go back in the locker room. And all these guys are so welcoming. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there before the last show, and also a line of guys come up. They just gone through the door, and they just every single one of them, made eye contact with me, shook my hand, like I was the president of the United States.
I've been, the shaking of the hand is a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about that. Go around, just shake everybody's hand 10 times. That was my first show that I went to. First time I was in the locker room at an independent show that I was helping run.
Uh-huh.
I was told to shake everybody's hand, and I literally shook everybody's hand like 10 times. They were looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, the only thing you can't have that limp fish handshake.
No, well, the softer the better, right? The softer means you're going to take care of them a little bit. Little backstage talk, right? By the way, can I tell you, when I shook Colossal Mike Law's hand,
uh-huh.
My hand just crumbled.
Yeah, it's colossal.
It's colossal. Damn right. I couldn't even. I wrapped it up. I had my hand taped up for 6 weeks.
No, he's a great guy as well. I mean,
yeah, awesome dude.
Great personality, but just a great guy. Now, talking about you talked about the identity that Capital Wrestling has, and for an independent wrestling, a lot of them, not all of them are on TV, obviously, but they've got the GFQ. We've also got IRW Network with Eric Bischoff and PivotShare.com. How big is that? For that, and also we just recently have the news that they joined United Network. So.
Yeah. So you want to talk about numbers?
No, numbers, but I mean just how important is that, or different, unique, I guess, to have all that.
Oh, it's super important. Right now we're in this renaissance of wrestling, and it's great. It's an art. It's an art form in general, and we air Capital Wrestling every week, and the feedback that I get is unbelievable. And I think we're in this new period where you can get anything that you want, any kind of wrestling that you want. You have CZW, you have all these different promotions that have a very different mentality. The days of the outlaw promotion are kind of out. I think now it's whatever flavor you're into. I'm a big fan of Evolve. I go to all the Evolve shows, and that's one flavor. You go to Capital Wrestling, that's another one. You go to Hog, that's another. Everything feels a little different and has a following, and I think that's really important for the industry to have individual groups, an individual feel to everything that you're doing, and not everything should follow the same format. Every match that we put on at Capital Wrestling, it's a different style of match. You may have a lucha match. You may have a match that's more grappling. You may have a higher flying match. Everything is different, and I think that's what makes it important.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of the business and you're a fan of wrestling and you want to watch something that's different than everybody else, I think this is a great place to get introduced to it.
Yeah, and I mean, that leads me into my next topic is just, what are you most looking forward to July 29th?
You know what it is? I'm excited about the new venue. For me, I get very geeky with every time I show up and we're upping the production. Mm-hmm. Every time that we go, I've gone, last time when I went, I was so amazed at the progress from the first show. So for me, it's more the progression as far as quality goes. And I love seeing that we have a dedicated audience that shows up. The tag team gauntlet, I'm looking forward to, obviously. Mm-hmm. I'm really that I'm for sure, because we actually have great tag teams in Capital Wrestling. New York Wrecking Crew is one of the best tag teams, in my opinion, in the Northeast, if not in wrestling. I mean, these guys are going to go really far. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything with Sonny Kiss, Mike Law. What's actually I'm curious to see Hyde and Preston Quinn.
Yeah, that is going to be awesome. Debuting DJ Hyde. That's going to be a battle of hosses right there.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard-hitting match. And, of course, MJF and Gangone.
And then we're going to have the Capital Combat match, the first ever, between Kerman and Cannonball.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much. It's a great show for anybody that hasn't gone to an independent show. This is where you want to go. It's a lot of fun. You can bring your kids. It's a very friendly thing to do on the weekends.
Oh, and also, I think it was recently added, we had Smiley. He's going to be taking on Bo Crockett.
Yeah, I'm actually, I think I'm bringing my wife this time, so it'll be her first Capital show. Oh,
we can't wait for that. Actually, it's a good thing she didn't come to the first one, honestly, because looking back, I mean, at that time she was probably pregnant, and it was freezing in there.
Oh my God, I know. It was a terrible time. She had some complications at that point with the pregnancy, and I couldn't make it to it, but she, with the last one I came, she wanted to come, but it's so hard with the kids. But she's only gone to a couple indie shows. She's only gone to, I would say, Evolve. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's probably the only independent show that she's gone to is Evolve.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, it's going to be great.
She's not the biggest pro wrestling fan. I think she just
puts up with it.
She's become a fan. It's so funny because the other day she just looked at me and she goes, "Oh yeah, this guy was working me at the store," and I started laughing because it kind of seeps into your personal life.
Yeah. No, that's hilarious. But I mean, before we get out of here, what are your visions, or your goals for GFQ, and I guess Capital, and just in general?
For GFQ, obviously continued growth. We're on a great track. We're having the best year that we've ever had, and that's great to say after 8 years. 8-9 years of doing this, it's the numbers go up all the time, and that's a positive. And I still love what I do. I want to do more stuff with the wrestling stuff. We're doing more extra bonus shows with the wrestling stuff, obviously. For Capital, I just want to, being part of the growth is amazing in any capacity. For me, my time is limited due to everything going on in my life, but I always tell Matt that whatever we do, let's do it 100%. Let's not half-ass what we do.
Yeah.
And that's quite obvious with the way that we market. I mean, our imaging is great. Our production value is going up every week.
Shout out to Susie Q.
And we're not running a TV budget. We're not running with this tremendous amount of overhead. We're not. Well, the overhead obviously is there, but we're not dealing with a company that's kind of funding all this. It's a lot of grassroots marketing, and I know Matt and Marcus work very hard at promoting this thing. and the continued growth, obviously. I mean, that's what we're looking forward to.
And a shout out to Susie. She does that great work for the imaging and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, you could tell by the quality. You look at these posters. I'm looking at it right now, and I would hang this up in my office.
I'm actually,
and that's how I see it. That if this is something that you would say, "Wow, I'm proud of that," that's good. Then you know that you're doing something good.
I actually have the poster from the first one hung up in my room.
I don't have the poster, and I'm gonna have to talk to them. But I think Shapiro took mine last time.
Oh man, what a little klepto right there.
Yeah, he's something else. I've never met an egomaniac like him.
No, and Matt's great, obviously, and you've been a great guest. But before we get out of here, what are I guess you want to plug all your podcasts and everything. Anything you want to plug, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mattman Podcast. You can go to gfpnetwork.com, check it out there. We like to have fun. We get silly on the show. We don't dwell on the negative. I've been doing it with one of my best friends. I've known him for 20 years, so it just so happened that we have the chemistry to do this. That, and of course, What the Tech. If you're into technology, that's my bread and butter right there. That show.
And do you have any I guess GFQ merchandise or anything?
I do. We have a Pro Wrestling Tees store. If you go to prowrestlingtees.com/Mattman Podcast, you can go there, buy our T-shirts, buy the Mattman shirt. You can buy the GFQ shirt. We have all our products over there, and of course, we have a Patreon. If you want to fund this, you go to patreon.com/Mattman Podcast.
And where can they find you on Twitter?
At Andrew Zarian.
Andrew Zarian, and then at Mattman.
And then Mattman Podcast for the show. There
we go. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and hyping up and talking about everything, man. It was great to talk to you.
Awesome. Anytime. Listen, anytime that I'm not on the road or dying or having another kid, I'll come on the show.
Oh, most definitely. We'll look forward to that. And we're going to take a quick break right now, but after that, we're going to talk to the Colossal Mike Law about his match versus the debuting Matt McIntosh. Be right back. Welcome back to the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G. Take a look at pivotshare.com and irwnetwork.com every Monday for replays of Capital Wrestling, and you can go to GFQ with Andrew Zarian, and we want to thank Andrew for coming on earlier and talking about all sorts of wrestling, what he enjoys, and just Capital and the relationship GFQ has with Capital. So really good to talk to him, great guy, and I can't wait to see him again at July 29th in Hoboken, New Jersey. But right now we're going to get to our second guest of the evening, obviously from Capital Wrestling, and he's been on the show before, so it's great to have him back. He is the intergender champion of the known universe. He is the Colossal Mike Law. What's up, Mike?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
How you been, man?
I'm doing great, by the way, but I always think about that. Not that I forget, but it's often one of those things where if it's an intergender title, I haven't faced a woman, and I would assume that's the reason they would have crowned me the intergender champion is because I would face men and women. And not that I'm complaining. I mean, the competition I'm receiving at Capital is top notch, and it continues at the next event with Matt McIntosh. But just an observation that I made. I don't know. Just an observation I'm making here.
It's definitely something unique, and I hope that's what they're building to, something different where I think I've rarely seen women and men wrestle, but when I do, it definitely catches your eye, and you're like, okay, this is not normal. But I mean, obviously, they're professionals, so they'll find a way to make it happen and be safe.
Absolutely. I mean, it comes from again a level of professionalism, a level of being trained properly, which is a big thing for me. Certainly, no reason why. If that is a genre, a lot like a horror movie or suspense, this is like a new wave of genre, and a lot of people in general have to kind of evolve with that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. Look, to each their own. All I'm saying is that people have to respect that if there are people that like that, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And it's between two trained professionals. Same thing as, a death match would be another form of genre for wrestling. So again, that's just what it is. It's just a new wave genre for what we do that just caught fire for the last, like, I don't know, 2 or 3. I mean, probably longer, but like I don't know what happened to me yesterday. So let alone how long it's been that the intergender craze has been around.
Yeah, I think maybe it's probably, I don't know, I'm not, don't quote me on this, anybody, but I would assume maybe the last 5 or 6 years, and even maybe more recent than that. I mean, I've seen instances like Veda Scott and Cedric Alexander, and I mean, they definitely, the match I saw, I mean, they killed it, but watching him do the lumbar check to her, I was like, man, that looks pretty rough, but I guess in the end, it's still, like you said, 2 trained professionals, and it's a niche market, whether it's the death match or the, intergender or other things, people have their specific interests, so.
Absolutely. Here's a bit of myself. It's a matter of taste. You know what I mean? Like, some people, they love the hardcore wrestling. They love the extreme style. They love lucha libre. They love the American style, like strong style. So ultimately, look, whatever at the end of the day is going to help get the promoters paid, going to help the boys and the girls get paid. I'm okay with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the end all be all for me.
I mean, but this week, speaking of episodic TV, I just saw the most recent episode of Capital Wrestling. It had Sex Crazed, Matt Sells, and Smiley versus the tag team champions, Luxury Muscles Incorporated, Bobby Shields and Stan Styles. Very fun matchup. They retain their tag team titles. But the part that actually stood out, I mean, obviously they did a great job, but for me, the part that stood out was just the announcing of Harry Turjanian and Stephen James. I've always said it before that they're great announcers, but every now and then you hear them say one line and you have to, like, it makes you laugh out loud.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, the announcing team is such an important aspect of the. I've seen top-notch companies where I'll watch a video or anything, and the commentator is so dead to me. And I mean, like, there's just no emotion whatsoever, and it's like, I don't understand that. Like, you're out there, and you're the way I've always seen play-by-play or anything else is that, like, if you ever listen to the radio in terms of, or I guess satellite at this point,
yeah,
and you listen to a baseball game, you want, like, the utmost. You want to feel like you're there. You know what I mean? And granted, with pro wrestling, we're seeing the visual of it. With Capital, we're seeing the visual of Smiley, Matt Sells. We're seeing those guys and we're seeing the teams, but at the same time, like, the emotion needs to be there. And if it's a comedic moment, then that needs to be expressed by the commentary team. Let it go in there. Let them do whatever comedy they're going to do. Let it marinate, and then from there, have the announce team, just kind of, I mean, no pun, but sell it. Like that's what it needs. That's what that team is for. And so a lot of times, I'll, whether it's an indie company that I wrestle for, or it's a company on the, in the major league, if you will. That's so important, and it's such a like underrated thing. Like, how important a commentary team is to tell you a story, to, like, just the overall product. I've seen teams in the indies that are sometimes it scratches my head. Like, they'll talk about 10 different things other than the match, and it reminded me of WCW back in the day when there'd be a great match in the ring and they were talking about the main event, and there's nothing wrong with alluding to that.
Yeah.
But the focus is on the individuals performing at that very moment.
Well, that reminds me of, like, Raw, where Michael Cole will, I mean, of course he's got Vince McMahon in his ear about, what to say and everything, but they'll be talking about everything, which thing out into the sun, and then social media, and sometimes you'll have it where they have 2 wrestlers who are feuding, and they'll both be announcing, and they'll just overtake the whole segment. You got to put the damn thing on mute.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, the game has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something you're not going to discuss with the tryouts in a little bit and all that. But the game has changed, and I get it. I get the. I mean, if you're a performer, and I think Homicide said this too. Like, he's not a big fan of social media. Homicide, Impact Wrestling, LAX. He said, like, how's that for name drop, right? He said he doesn't like social media, but he understands why people. Like, you have to have your stuff out there. You have to have videos. You have to have pictures. You have to. It's all about the marketing, and social media
exposure
has become that. It's become the modern day, ad. of the modern day infomercial. So of course the WWE has to do what's best in order to get people towards those channels, because at the end of the day, that's also their moneymaker. That's going to make them money, and it's business. At the end of the day, we have to kind of separate that as well and be like, that's where the business end of it comes, and sometimes it maybe kind of, I guess, degrade the performance of the ring, which it's a two-way street on that.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes, back to your point about the other announcers, maybe in other indies or other companies, sometimes they're trying to get themselves over, and it takes away from the match. But Harry and Steven, I mean, they're doing a phenomenal job. And Harry had one line about, he said to Steven, Liberace's ghost says you're too flashy. Because I remember he was wearing that pretty bright jacket, so that's kind of his calling card. But more power to him for doing so, because I know I couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, to be able to throw lines like that, I mean, one of my favorites, obviously I'm dating myself here, but like Bobby Heenan has some of the greatest one-liners. You know what I mean? Like, when you have a team that has that chemistry like these guys have, that's just as important as anything else, because that will make or break a commentary team.
No, definitely. You have to have that natural chemistry. They definitely have it. Matthew Ryan did a great job. Also Marcus, they did a great job in finding the voices of Capital Wrestling. It was really fun to get to talk to them a few weeks back. Both guys are hilarious, but also very intelligent. So, the utmost respect to them.
Yeah, I mean, intelligence is something that's although lacking in the wrestling world at times. Is very much appreciated by people like us, Sean, myself.
Esteemed people who have, such as yourself, who went to Hofstra and...
Yeah. I don't want to throw Hofstra out there that too much.
Yeah.
But,
I'm doing some college...
I did put a picture up recently of that.
I'm doing some college name dropping now. You're going to have a new finisher, and it's going to be called the Name Drop.
That's it. And it was going to drop names left and right, man. I'm gonna totally split this David person. We're not gonna say the person about that, but yeah, fair enough. Name drop the university. Let's do it.
Continually to name drop, Ken Dixon cut a promo about Sonny Kiss. He mentioned Ryan Zane and said he came on the short bus, he wears a special helmet, and then he talks trash about Sonny. And he finishes it off with a cheer, clapping his hands, and he goes, "My name is Ken. Your name is Sonny. On June 3rd, we'll wrestle, and I'll effing kill you." So that was just pure Ken Dixon. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, he's a tough dude. I like the. I mean, all things aside, he's one of the guys that I like to face. I like what he brings to the table. Has a great look. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And very aggressive style. And look, I get it. And there's nothing on Sonny Kiss, man. I absolutely, think he's a talented dude. But I see how this thing is. You know what I mean? I see, who's getting, in terms of the talents that are being looked at always. And Sonny's definitely one of those guys, you know what I mean? We're being groomed, if you will.
Yeah.
So, it's hard, man, because, I'll be honest, I've been doing this for a while, and so I see both those guys as threats to that. And I'll get into the main event, because I know for the next event for Capital, because involves my former best friend in the whole wide world, Anthony Gangone, and MJF. I'm not going to say his full name. It's too long and obnoxious.
That's a lot of syllables.
Yeah. And he changed it again. So, going back to those two guys, it's going to be exciting once we get in there. I'm pretty sure that they will be definitely one of the top match tonight, if not match tonight. I'm not saying it because it's like, oh yeah, they're going for that. It's just like, there's a level, it's like, kind of like the commentary team. When you find that playing field where it's like, both people are trying to outdo each other, that to me is what makes the match. You know what I mean? Like, that's a competitive level that people don't understand about what we do. Like, it's not so much, I want to win or lose. That's important, fine. It's like, what am I going to do to make people remember that I'm the guy? You know what I mean? And that, yeah, you're good, but I'm going to be remembered. The moment. I'm going to give them the moment, and that's just so important, man. That's just like, that's the competitiveness that you're going to see from a lot of guys. Just nowadays in general, but in Capital Wrestling, I've noticed that. Like, a lot of guys, not, match tonight, like, that was a 5-star match.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, was it? Yeah, good. So, I mean, that's cool. But, like, at the end of the day, like, there's so much more to that. You know, the aura some people give, you know, whether it's, like, like, kind of like that big feel, fight feel aura that people get from certain wrestlers and performers, you know, that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to your main event you had versus Preston Quinn in just a little bit. If my memory serves me correctly, you were in Canada recently for a tryout?
Yeah. Recently, was in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Have the most comfortable bed you will ever sleep on. I swear to you. This was like a no-name. This was a no-name hotel. Like, wouldn't know it from a hole in the wall. Wasn't even like a Best Western or Super 8. Like, I'm not saying that those are top. I mean, look, you're talking about guys who stood in you know, like top of the line, you know, places like dealers and stuff. This bed was probably the most comfortable bed I ever slept in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was because it was a 13-hour ride to go there, but I'm telling you, man, this bed was amazing. And at one point, I was contemplating to myself the next morning. I was like, you know what? Is this tryout really? Is this really going to be important in the grand scheme of things? And it is, and that's why I got my ass up.
No, but so how was that experience? You know, going over there and did you drive there or fly?
I drove there, man. It was just It was one of those things where it was just a last minute decision on my part. I'm happy I did it. I needed to prove to myself that I need to go out of my way, and I need to, like, you got to go out there and find the opportunity. The opportunity will absolutely not come to you. It's never been that way. It will never be that way. You got to go out there and you got to get yourself seen in front of the right people, and whether it's this tryout or seminar or camp, that's the way it's going to be. The thing is, the passing of the guard, the changing of the paradigm in wrestling is that a lot of the guys I came up with have just, I don't think they think that way. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's a hard thing for me to swallow as well, because I started training in 1998.
Yeah.
I'm giving my age here, but my first pro match was like in 2001. So, I've been doing this for a while. And, I had off and on moments, but I left for a year or two, and, I was helping with a company called FW out in New York, for 2 or 3 years doing that. I didn't wrestle. But the thing is, I knew at the end of the day, you had to change with the business, and the business now requires for you to do these things. Jay Bradley, who was in Impact, was there. He got the Pro Wrestling Noah contract, deservedly so. The other guys who were a lot younger were on there. I get why. I see why that was done. But at the end of the day, like, it won't stop me. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of guys who have been around won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because to them, it was different. Back when I first started, like, you either went to a show, kind of spoke to a promoter. You still do that today. But back then, you sent a VHS. Most people who are listening to this probably don't even know what a VHS is. Or a DVD. I don't know.
Well, back in 1998 when you started, I think that's when Amazon just sold books.
There you go. Yeah, that's probably what it was. So you had that, and you nailed them. You nailed them out to promoters. You guys would talk, or you'd hitch a ride with somebody, and that's how you did it. That's how you got booked. And you would go train like you would do nowadays. But the thing is, a lot of guys, like, that's where that old paradigm and the guys who came with it are no longer evolving.
Uh-huh. So
I knew I had to go to this tryout. 13 hours, 20 hours, it didn't matter. I knew I had to do it, because if I didn't, then I was just I was letting myself go along with the old paradigm, the way it works. Like, it's not like that, man. You got to go to the camps. You got to do the seminars. You got to do all that stuff.
Now, did you drive straight through, or did you rest in the middle?
No, I stopped to eat. You know what I mean? I brought my own. I brought food. You know what I mean? And I made. You may stop, but I never stopped. The whole ride there, I didn't stop.
Yeah.
I didn't feel I had to. I had enough energy. I think I started at 10 o'clock in the morning. It took me 2 hours to get out of New York alone.
Damn.
And drove to, like, old stomping grounds. I went through Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, then through Detroit, and then right to Canada. But I wouldn't take it back. It was a great experience. A lot of talented dudes. Got some more our Fuji was there as well, and just a lot of talent, man.
Now, speaking of talent and speaking of Capital Wrestling, what do you feel is the effect that Capital Wrestling has had on your career and possibly the rest of the roster so far in only 2 shows?
You know what, man? I will say this. The production value of what Capital Wrestling brings is one of the reasons why they're seeing the success.
Mm-hmm.
Too many of these independent companies, I'm going to say right now, a lot of companies that I work for, or wrestle for, I don't even say work, or wrestle for, they don't get it. They'd rather load a card up with $5,000 worth of talent, which, again, if you have that in your budget, so be it. Again, we all want to make money, like, that's fine. But they don't realize that a big thing is not that you don't want to go to a show. You don't want to go to a show. I don't want to go to a show. You don't even want to go to an event. What you want to go to is an experience. And that's what these shows should start resembling. And that's what Capital Wrestling has been doing. When you go to one of their events, one of their, I guess, experiences, I'm going to put it.
Yeah.
That's what you're experiencing. That's what you're getting out of it. You're getting a theatrical showing of the athleticism that we bring, the storytelling that we bring, the comedy, the seriousness. You're getting all that. You're getting the emotions. And you're also getting the light. You're getting the camera work. You're getting the big feel of an event. That's what that is. And that's why whenever my matches are shown on these things, on their program, people are like, oh man, this is a top of the line product because it presents itself like that.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is too much of the companies out there are trying to have 1 million guys on the show, a 5-hour show, and then they're like, and then in the fans, yeah, you're getting great wrestling out of it sometimes, but you're not going there for the wrestling. You know, the wrestling is a huge part of it. It is, but at the same time, people want to pay for the experience of getting to see some of their favorite wrestlers, of getting to see a light show, of getting to see like cool visuals of a building that you would never think, a church that you would never think could hold a wrestling event. That's what it's all about. And honestly, I will say Capital. I will thank Warriors of Wrestling. I cannot not thank them. Like, Warriors of Wrestling, by far, is probably one of the reasons why I really started getting booked as much as I have and getting, but Capital Wrestling is now allowing me to be seen at a broader audience and allowing, and I'm getting contacts from promoters that I normally would never have gotten, I don't think. Not because I'm not talented, I know I'm talented. It's just because they're seeing me on this level and they're seeing me, like, perform, in the production value, and you go, this guy, I like this guy, you know what I mean? And again, it's about hiding the negatives and showcasing the positives,
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to call that the Capital effect, and I'm glad it's had a positive effect on your career, and hopefully many others, that we can't speak for at the moment, but obviously I'll get to those other people at some other time. There's plenty of a stacked roster I am fortunate enough to talk to every week, so it's good to see that there's a positive effect.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if more companies have to realize that, and again, it's all about like distinguishing yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Capital Wrestling has done that. They've done that by, changing, like taking talent from different companies, like whether it's the House of Glory, whether it's the Warriors of Wrestling, whether it's, all these different obstacles, all these different companies, I should say, and they're putting their talents together and putting them in these matches that you wouldn't normally get.
Yeah.
Like Matt McIntosh and myself facing each other for the very first time is a match you wouldn't get in a lot of other places. It's a creativity to it, you know what I mean? Anthony Gango versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman, right?
Friedman, yeah.
Friedman, that's a match you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. You know what I mean? And that's what's boiling down to, is that there has to be a creative process in putting these matches together. Or like, oh, that's intriguing. Like, you got this guy who thinks he knows. He's 6'7", 685 stone. He's a champion of some sort. You're getting him against a hot commodity like Matt McIntosh. Like, you got that kind of ideology behind it, and you're gonna build a fan base. It will not fail. It's not all about like a million names. I'm sorry, that's not the way it works.
It's quite all right. Your June 3rd main event you had versus Preston Quinn. What was your strategy for that match, and then what was your mindset following that loss?
I was disappointed in a lot of ways with that. As a performer, I was disappointed because, when you're given the opportunity to main event, again, this is subjective, this is my personal opinion, which I know I'm entitled to. Like, I feel like there's an importance to that. I feel like you are the guy that you're being billed on the top of the card because the company feels that you can perform at that level. And I will say that I was disappointed because I don't think I necessarily brought my A game to Preston Quinn. Preston's coming out from Virginia, or coming up for Virginia, I should say. He has a long trip. I know that he goes out there. He's a ring general. He's a tough dude. And to me, my mentality was like, all right, I'm going to do whatever it takes for people to say, Preston Quinn's a main event guy based on just the way he looks and the way he carries himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, all BS aside, Mike Law, the individual, is not the biggest, dog in the fight. You know what I mean? I don't do a lot of, flips, although I do occasionally. I don't, I am good a little bit. I'm good at everything, not just great at one thing. You know what I mean? So, to me, it's always an uphill battle. It's always, the idea of Colossal is about the fact that I always have to fight and prove myself to everyone every single time. It will not stop, and it will never end. I could make $1 million in this business, and it will not end to the fact that I will constantly have to prove myself to everybody that I'm the real deal and that I'm the guy who deserves to be on top. You know what I mean? It's just, it's in my head, and I'm glad it is. It's frustrating because, again, going back to that main event, show it was a great show. It was a show that really kind of helped elevate a lot of guys. Once that main event came on, to me, this is my time. This is my time. And to me, I'm a perfectionist, man. I always wanted the best. And I felt after the match was done that I was like, in my head, I was like, was that the best Mike Law that Chance could have gotten? People were like, yeah, man, that was good. No, it wasn't. It wasn't even an iota of what I could have given.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And I told Matt Ryan as soon as, and I told Marcus Dowling, and I told whoever else was listening, I want a rematch with that guy. I want to fight him again. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't satisfied. I'm not happy, and I'm still not. And for days, man, it just burned in me. I was not in a good mood, and I was just saying to myself, in my head, there's no reason that at the end of that night that no one should have been like, what did you miss? Why did you leave before the main event? Those guys killed it, and that's what it is. It's a matter of pride as well. You know what I mean? And that's why I was, in my head, that's why I need that rematch. I need it down the line. You know what I mean? Win, lose, or draw. I have to have that happen again. Not overlooking Matt McIntosh. I think, I was watching some of his videos before we came on, and I do study. And believe it or not, people are like, study your opponents and all that stuff. I actually do legitimately study guys because I want to see what they do, man. I want to see what they have to offer. And, like I said, he has an impressive repertoire. Good build on him. I can't deny it. It's interesting. It will be a very interesting match, and I truly believe that, I'm going to throw everything I can, once again, to make sure that at the end of the night, I'm the guy that you're going to talk about. It's not the win or loss to me. It's not. It almost has never really been. It's always the fact that Mike Law is a guy that you need to talk about. He's a guy that needs to be on national TV. He's the guy that that everyone should sleep on. You know what I mean? And I felt that that's part of my kind of the angst that I have, is that I feel that a lot of people have slept on me. I feel that people still do, and I need to win this from a moral standpoint. I need to win this because I need to show people that I'm not the guy to sleep on.
So would you say that it's fair to say you have a eternal chip on your shoulder?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's going to be a death of me. I mean, that's what it will eventually lead to that. It's the fact that I'm not happy with this. I'm not, man. I'll look at something on the video, what was I thinking? To look so, all these little trinkets of what we, overanalyze. You analyze that by 10, I analyze that by 50. And that's the difference between me and everyone else, man. All these other dudes are man, no, man, it's not, to me, it's very rare. I get very bad anxiety watching my matches. It's weird. I'll watch my stuff just to study it, and I'll watch it, I'll sleep, I don't know if anyone's ever seen, was it Shia LaBeouf? I think it was Shia LaBeouf, I'm going to say. He was watching a bunch of his films, and he was cringing at it.
Yeah.
Putting his head down in the movie theater, and that's kind of the way I am. I'll look down, oh man, I'll put my hat over my head, or I'll put my head down, I'll listen to the commentary, but I'll watch, and it's I'm never happy, and I'll never be happy or satisfied with the way with the way I am, really, in general.
I mean, I have a chip on my shoulder, but I also, actually, I believe in balance and symmetry, so I have 2 chips, one on each shoulder.
Well, there you go, man. And it's good I wish I was like that, but it's more towards, I guess, if we're going to say towards the bad side, it would be more towards the left, where it's not. So it's probably not even healthy for me. I'm not going to lie to you.
But I'm also the same way when it comes to whether it's podcasting. And, at first when I hear my voice, I'm like, oh gosh. Or sometimes I'll be editing and I'll hear myself get stuck on a word and I'll repeat it over and over again and I have to edit it out. And I was doing it the other day, and my girlfriend was actually happened to be nearby, and she was listening to me edit. We just started laughing because I kept replaying it over, trying to find a spot where to cut it. And I just, like you said, that eternal chip on the shoulder, and we'll always have it there because you're never complacent. At least you should never be complacent in whatever field you're in, because once you get complacent, once you get comfortable, that's when your, I guess, most work stagnates.
Yeah, that's it. And again, it's certain guys, and you guys will know who it is. Most likely get offended, but that's where a lot of guys who I came up with, or have been doing this either longer or just as long as I have done that. Too many guys are just, and again, look, if that's your thing, so be it. I'm not saying who am I to be lending anyone advice? I'm just saying this is my observation of what's going on. Is that a lot of guys just want to be that guy. They just want to be, they refuse to change, whether it's their look, whether it's their facade, whether it's the way they do this, whether they perform, their physique. You have to be out of your comfort zone. And going to Canada was not that it was believe me, when I've done way worse or way better. I'm not better or worse, but in terms of doing stuff that are out of my realm of comfort, I've done stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a reminder to myself that I never need to be comfortable. That I always have to be on the edge. That I always have to be at these tryouts, at these seminars, at these camps, proving myself to guys that never see got the morning over from a hole in the wall, like Johnny Devine, none of you guys, the guys from Canada. They don't know who I am, you know what I mean? But I like that. The element of surprise is the best thing in the world. Guys like Matt McIntosh, probably don't, like, he knows of me. I mean, I'm sure we've met a couple times in the locker rooms. But, like, a guy like him, like, oh, well, you know, like, he may overlook me. I don't know. But the fact is, like, I like that. I like the fact that he's not going to know what could. Because when I do hit him, and I'm pretty sure, and believe me, I will, he'll never see it coming. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, like, all these other guys that I'm, like, constantly just checking out. Like, I do my homework, man. Like, I know it's what. I don't go out there and proclaim it because I don't have time. I run my own business. I wrestle pretty much every weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I have a life outside of wrestling that helps get everything for me in wrestling. So I personally don't have the time to do that. I do check out everything. Believe me, I see a lot more than I let on. But at the same time, like, I like to keep my distance. I like to make sure that, you know, when I'm stepping in something that I'm at an advantage. Not Matt McIntosh, not even Anthony Gangone, not even Matt Feinstein or Friedman, not Sonny Kiss, not Ken Dixon, not, you know, Preston Quinn, you know, none of those guys. At the end of the day, at the overall scheme of things, like, I want to have the advantage, and that's where the difference lies.
Now, if you do hypothetically get a win over Matt McIntosh, where do you believe that puts you?
No, what I do, I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, I need to be the main event. I need to be the top guy in Capital. Like, you don't even know how much. Like, I contacted their promoters. I contacted, the team, the matchmakers. I was like, I need to be the top guy here. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. Because at some point, like, I've given, like, a lot. And again, I'm not gonna ever go out and put it out there. The guys who have done right by in wrestling and in business know who they are. I've given guys a lot of. I put a lot of guys on. Again, it's not. I'm just saying it just for the perspective of where I'm going with this. Is the fact that I've been very selfless in giving people opportunities and helping guys out, but I've never been selfish about it. Mm-hmm. And that is where this year that's changed. Now I know what I have to be. I will still be one of the most selfless dudes you'll ever see. But at the end of the day, I need to also be selfish because I also have to realize that my brand, myself as a person, isn't going to be able to do this 40, 50 years from now. I need to do this now because every day that you don't accomplish that point to your goal is one less day and one less opportunity you have. And to me, I can't afford that, man. I can't afford to let these other guys think that it's safe in these shark-infested waters, man. And, yeah, you know, Capital Wrestling is on its way up. But that's anywhere in this life, bro. Like, that's what you got to realize. That's anywhere in this life. You got to realize that anywhere you go, you got to look behind you, you got to look to the side, you got to look to the front. You got to see what's going on in your environment, because if not, you're just swallowed. You will get eaten alive. And pro wrestling, I'm telling you, it's exactly like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and with the new stars that Capital Wrestling's bringing in left and right, you cannot get complacent, you cannot get comfortable, and that's how you prefer it, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not evolving with the new guys today, like, if you have to, again, this to me, more than anything else, it's going to be a test once again. It's always a test. It's always a test for me to prove to people that I am truly the real deal. But more important, to prove to myself that I not only still have it, but still can go above and beyond it. Mm-hmm. And Matt McIntosh is one of those guys who's quickly making a name for himself. Is being, has a great pedigree behind him. Was trained by some excellent trainers. Being groomed. Again, another guy being groomed. And rightfully so. But at the same time, I got to take that guy down a notch. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I have to show that guy that I am the alpha. You know what I mean? Like, that's in my head. I have to do that, because if I don't, then I'm being complacent, and I'm not that type of person. I'm not complacent.
Now, after being at the first two shows, what is the biggest difference you've noticed, or the sense of growth that you've seen with Capital?
I mean, to me, Capital it's only 2 shows, man. It's hard to tell because of the fact that ask me this question a year from now. I'm still with the company. They may not like me. Ask me this question a year from now, and I can tell you more different. I think they're making headway in terms of how they're marketing the product. I think they're making sense in terms of how they're building the brand. That's important. It's what it is, man. Like, what the indies are is like, if you go to Walmart and you see all these great brands for, these brands of like toothpaste. You have Colgate, you have all these other different brands, and that's what it is. But which one does stick out the most? Which one has the nicest colored box?
Yeah, what grabs your eye?
The color, the best presented. What grabs your attention? And that's what Capital Wrestling's been doing. You know what I mean? And, I'm not saying it because I truly believe in the product. As I do for a lot of other companies. That I perform for. But specifically with this situation, it's that they're doing that. Their production value has gotten to that. In 2 shows, mind you, it's gotten better than a lot of companies that have been doing this for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that, to me, is what's going to set them apart, is the fact that they're going to present all the talent that they have, whether it's Jeff Cannonball, John Kerman, McIntosh, any of those guys, Sonny Kiss, Smiley. You can name the plethora of talent that are going to be on these shows, and you'll know that they're being presented in a high caliber, larger than life perspective, and that to me is huge. You know what I mean? And just 2 shows, mind you, like that's big.
Yeah, and I mean, like you just mentioned some of the talent that they've had, and the last show they had the debuting talent like Bo Crockett, Anthony Gangone, as you've mentioned, Paul Jourdain. Which one of those guys grabbed your attention the most?
Paul Jourdain has looked too stiff on it. He will. I don't know. I met the guy first time last show, and has a great attitude. Has a solid build, big dude. Has an impressive move. I saw he killed.
Poor Ryan Zane.
I was like, oh my god, we've had our first fatality in Capital Wrestling. It was vicious, and yeah, kudos to Ryan for living through that. But Paul Jourdain has a really good look. Wouldn't be shocked if he gets signed. Who else? Anthony Gangone is one of those guys who's like a diamond in the rough. You know what I mean? He's one of those dudes that he's like an underground guy. Like people like, have you heard about The Rook? Have you heard about that guy? Like, he's slowly building that momentum.
Yeah.
Like, so he's one of those guys that like, have you seen that match? You heard the guy had to, like, people are whispering, and those whispers will soon turn into talk, which will soon turn into a lot of adulation. I mean, I see if he doesn't defeat himself first, because much like myself, we're like our worst enemies. He has the possibility of making some huge things happen for him in this business. I've said it time and time again about him. And at the end of the day, each one of these guys are more than capable of being at that level of being national, international stars. Don't if for a second think that won't happen or that it can happen. Mm-hmm. It's up to that individual. Max Feinstein, they have Max Feinstein on the flyer, by the way, too.
Oh, really?
As a heads up, But what's done is done. He is Scott Friedman now. I was like Friedman. He is Friedman now. But that guy is doing. I mean, I think other than Matt Riddle, and believe me, I don't want to let any more credence to this guy more than he already had, because his head's gonna he's gonna need to wrestle with shades after hearing his compliment. But I would say, at least in the East Coast, I mean, I would say in the East Coast, Max MJF having the meteoric rise, very similar to Matt Riddle. Mm-hmm. Now, Matt Riddle is a prodigy because he's a legitimate UFC ass kid, right? And he has a great look. He's ripped out of his mind, has a great pedigree. But I'm saying, as far as from a guy from our perspective, I think a guy like MJF is that guy. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about all the titles he's holding, he's making waves, he's doing it. He's smart. You know what I mean? And that's he's smart. He gets it, and so he's gonna be that guy that people are talking about. You know, and again, I got another guy, which in the foreseeable future wouldn't be shocked if he gets signed either.
The last two guys you just talked about, I mean, you just built up next week's podcast for me. You did all the work for me.
Hey, that's what I do, man. And that's the selflessness that I have. Like, I've never had a problem giving. The only problem is that guys are more willing to give. You know, the more you're willing to give, the more fans and a lot of wrestlers are willing to take.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know that's where I need to start putting my foot down, because those guys are good, man. They're great, but in my heart of hearts, I truly feel that I'm better. And it's not an MJF marketing, you know, term, you know. That's his marketing, so that's where he markets them. I truly believe in my mind and my heart that at the end of the night, people need to be speaking about me, and they need to know that I'm the main event guy. You know, not Anthony Canjo, not MJF. They will be the main event guy eventually, but I need to be the main event guy. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you mentioned guys like Kerman and Cannonball as well. I mean, the entire roster, there's just so many different kinds of styles and personalities. And I almost every episode I refer to it as Capital as the melting pot of talent, which in a good way. But what is
it really is.
And I don't want to overlook Matt McIntosh by any means. We all know he's very talented, and he's definitely going to be a challenge for you. But potentially, like what's another guy who you would be interested in facing in the future? Aside from Preston Quinn.
Yeah, I know Preston Quinn is a sore spot for me. Like you said, the one thing, and that's another thing, going back to like giving props to Capital. I like that Capital doesn't have the same roster as everybody. There's so many companies that run in the proximity of each other. They use the same exact guys, and get this, John. They have the same matches. So, I got ABC Wrestling running in, you know, some town in let's say in New York, right? I'll say New York because I'm from New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10, 15 minutes away, you have XYZ Wrestling. And they're all wrestling, and they're all using the same guys. And they're using the same matches that ABC Wrestling did. So, to the fan, like, and rightfully so, because it's wrestling every weekend, pretty much. Like, why would I do that? Why would I go and watch ABC Wrestling when XYZ Wrestling is using the same exact roster, the same exact way?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It never has worked that way. You have to find your own identity. And what Capital Wrestling has been able to do, besides the production, besides the way they market themselves, is the fact that they're using the talent differently. Again, Anthony Gangone, MJF, wouldn't really necessarily happen anywhere else. Myself versus Matt McIntosh. He's done his thing, I've done my thing. Now it's time to see who does it better. And that's where it's at. Like, who's going to be the guy that they're going to remember between those two? Preston Quinn versus DJ Hyde. Where would that match ever happen? You know what I mean? Sonny Kiss versus Paul Jordan. You know, Paul's relatively new to this team. Sonny's setting this place on fire. He's like, Sonny. So, like, that's a match that, intriguingly enough, you're going to see it like, okay, well, it captures me because I know who Sonny is. I don't know Paul, but he looks impressive. I know, whether you know who I am or you know Matt McIntosh, but you know what each one of them can bring, and same thing with Jeff Cannonball and John Kerman. This is the third time they're going at it. I want to assume that these guys are going to literally try to kill each other because this is presumably the final chapter to this match, in my estimation. There could be more, I don't know. But as far as guys that I would like to get in the ring with, man, there's so many. I don't know. In this roster alone, there's a lot. Again, Preston Quinn being one of them again. I like to test my stuff against Anthony Gangone. He has a way of doing things. I used to team with Anthony Gangone. You know, you will never hear about it because, for whatever reason. But me and Anthony Gangone used to be tag partners for a company in New York. And I took a liking to him because he's not me and I'm not him. He's more reserved and quiet. Me, I'm loud and I may or may not be out of my mind at this point in my life.
But you guys found a nice balance.
Yeah, man, it was, but the thing is with him, stylistically, in this wrestling business, there's certain guys who, impose their style, right? It's kind of like in MMA where guys impose their will. In wrestling, certain guys impose their style where it's like, this is this is how we're going to pace it. Me personally, I know in my head, this is what I'm, this is what I'm going to do to kill you. And this is what you're going to try to do to, outdo me. And that's intriguing to me. You know what I mean? The same way with McIntosh, where he feels he's going to outdo me in the ring.
Yeah.
He's wrong. He's not. But in my mentality, this is what I'm going to do. And Anthony Gangone is one of those guys that in my head I go, oh, what would that be like? You know what I mean? Does he think in his head that he's going to outdo me? Because he's not. I will, and so he's one of those guys that intrigues me. From a pure, he's a big dude and I like to fight him. Jeff Cannonball, the guy, I just want to fight. I don't want to have a match, but I want to fight him.
A brawl.
I want to brawl to the streets of, of Hoboken or Jersey City, wherever we wrestle, and he's a guy like I personally feel will bring out more aggressive style in me, Smiley's another guy. I always felt like he has a different style altogether that's unique to me, and I'd like to see what would become of that, Yeah, man, it's just a lot, dude. You name them all. They're all
essentially
such a unique roster.
So essentially, Mike Law wants to fight the world of Capital Wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Everyone who's on this roster. If you look at the flyer from the main event all the way down to the opening match, everybody. The thing about these shows, Capital Wrestling, these experiences, I'm going to call them now, is that everybody has something to bring.
Yeah.
The matchmakers, the promoters have been able to take guys and say, oh, I like what this guy does. I'm going to bring him in for this. I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to bring him in for this. And they managed to take guys who bring a little bit of something and put them together. And that's why this product is different. And that's why it makes sense,
No, definitely. I mean, there's a lot to talk about there, and there's so much that's different about it. And we'll run down the card in a second. But before we run down the card and wrap up the show, what's on your future agenda aside from Capital, dates and things going on for you?
Funny enough, I'm within distance from I'm one of those dudes. I don't use my cell phones. Believe me, they're the best and worst invention because I get so many calls and stuff regarding all sorts of things that I do, from wrestling to my business. But I still write stuff down because that's just I like that. I happen to be within distance of my date book, so I think I have a World One taping. Actually, they're coming up. World One. They were owned by Steve Carino at one point, but they're a fun little group to work for. I like wrestling for them. I have a taping next weekend. Tier 1 the 28th. Capital Wrestling next weekend. Already?
Yeah, I think about 2 weeks, is it?
Yeah, I gotta get to the gym. So Capital Wrestling. Then I actually going to the Evolve tryout.
Nice.
Camp. Doing the Evolve camp in Baltimore, I believe.
Oh, excellent.
And Warriors of Wrestling the next night, and then another taping that Sunday. So it's one of those things where I need to keep busy, man. I have to constantly on the go. I love pro wrestling because it's constant movement, man. Like, not a boring, dull day, and it's like, I love the hustle. I love the drive. I love the whole industry, and that's probably what's kept me going for the last couple of years, is that.
Yeah, and also the hustle too is the marketing aspect, and with that comes merch. So do you have any shirts for sale these days? 8x10s, and where can people contact you or find those?
I mean, as always, as far as bookings, we'll go through that first. I mean, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Colossal Mike Law. You can email me. We always look forward to emails at the Colossal Mike Law at gmail.com. That's at the Colossal Mike Law at gmail.com. Instagram, same thing. I mean, the Colossal thing is what it is. It's just like Colossal Mike Law for Instagram as well. There's some good stuff on there. Yeah, some pretty good stuff on there.
Shout out
Facebook, of course.
Shout out to Greg Massey real quick, who did your theme song.
Yes, absolutely, man. Greg good plug.
Yeah,
Greg Massey is always great hard worker, man. And yes, I love the theme music. It's weird. That song, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe, but it's very reminiscent of Sid Vicious' old theme, I mean, It has a new way bound, but there's something to it that reminds me of old Sid's,
it's
music, which I love. Sid was one of my favorite, heavyweights.
It definitely stands out, and from, right away, you know it's you, and that's just a great sign of entrance music. I think I was talking to Tim Donst recently, and his song. I mean, if the song gets stuck in your head, it's really good.
Absolutely. I mean, there's two songs, and one's an ode to a guy who, if you found out, I don't know if he knows that I use it. I stole Devin Devine, who's a Pittsburgh guy. I stole The Stroke by Billy Squier. I use that song in other companies.
Nice.
And it's the greatest theme song ever. And I did ask for permission. I don't know if he necessarily was happy I took it, but I always shout him out for that. And of course, Greg, with an amazing theme song for me, man. I love it. I play when I work out, so that's one of my workout themes.
Oh, excellent!
So I see that in my
Well, I guess that it was those were your plugs, and now before we wrap up the show, I always do my plugs, and we're gonna run down the card here real quick before we get out of here. And Capital Wrestling coming up July 29th from Hoboken, New Jersey, at the Hopes Community Center on 301 Garden Street. The main event is Maxwell Jacob Friedman versus the Rogue Anthony Gangone. CZW's DJ Hyde will be making his debut and taking on the Pain Train Preston Quinn. The Bad Apple Matt McIntosh takes on our guest Colossal Mike Law. And we're also going to see a 5-team tag team gauntlet, and the winner will be the number one contender to face Luxury Muscles Incorporated, Bobby Shields and Stan Styles with Portia Vaughn later that night. We're also going to see Bo Crockett versus Smiley. Obviously, we're going to have Sonny Kiss and Paul Jourdain. If Sonny Kiss loses, he's promised he's not going to be a part of the Capital Wrestling roster anymore. Jeff Cannonball versus John Kerman 3. It's going to be the first ever Capital Combat match. It was essentially a no disqualification match, so they're going to do all sorts of things. I can't wait to watch that. It's going to be an exciting night. If you want to get your tickets, go to brownpaperticket.com, search Capital Wrestling, next stop Hoboken. Also, you can go to tinyurl/Capital Wrestling. You can follow them on Twitter at Capital Wrestling without the G, and you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Neutron. And you can catch us on IRW Network on Mondays, as well as Pivot Share, and also GFQ.tv. So that's it for this week's show. Anything else you have to say, Mike?
That is all, man. I could have said it better myself. Great plug, man. I'll say this. If you're coming to Capital Wrestling for a wrestling show, then you are going to the wrong show. If you're coming to Capital Wrestling to get a wrestling show and an experience, then you're certainly purchasing a ticket to quite an event. And that is all from me.
Oh, and the one thing I did leave out that I forgot to plug was the seminar that afternoon from 3 to 5 p.m. with Brutal Bob Evans for $30. You can still, I believe their spot's still open, so you want to go check that out. Email capitalwrestling@gmail.com. That's a hell of a value for one of the best in the business. He was on the podcast last week. Great to talk to him. He and Tough Tim Hughes will be back at Capital Wrestling. So can't wait to see them in that 5-team #1 gauntlet match. That's also going to feature the New York Wrecking Crew with Matthew Ryan Shapiro. Unfortunately, the classics were announced for it, but they were pulled recently by Preston Quinn. Perfect Strangers, the Amazing Graysons. But that's it. Yeah, that's it for episode 20 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I want to thank my guests, Colossal Mike Law and Andrew Zarian. And you can catch us here next week at soundcloud.com/LTorsPodcast, Wednesday at 12.